Hello everyone. I am Dr. Sharad Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Wildlife Sciences, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Biological diversity is necessary to sustain the life on Earth, but it is facing threats. The Biological Diversity Act was passed by the Indian Parliament to protect biodiversity and facilitate the sustainable management of biological resources with the local communities. In this lecture, I shall be discussing various aspects of Biological Diversity Act 2002. The Act primarily focuses on two objectives. The first objective of the Act is to conserve biological diversity, promote sustainable use, and provide mechanism to protect the right of local communities. The second objective of the Act is to provide framework for assessing biological resources and associated knowledge, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of their use, and for the matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Let's look at the historical background of the Act. The Convention on Biological Diversity immensely contributed towards the enactment of this Act. The Convention on Biological Diversity is the first global agreement to cover all aspects of biological diversity. The Convention has three main goals: the conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of its component, and the fair and the equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. Secondly, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, which is also known as Rio Summit 2, also played a crucial role in the formulation of Biological Diversity Act 2002, as the convention was opened for signature on 5th June 1992 at this conference. India became the party to convention, and to implement the provision of the convention, Indian government enacted the Biological Diversity Act 2002. Salient features of the Biological Diversity Act are as follows: regulation of access to biological resources of the country, conservation and sustainability of biological diversity, promoting and protecting the knowledge of local communities regarding biodiversity. The Act also ensures sharing of benefit with local people as conserver of biological resources and holders of knowledge and information relating to the use of biological resources. It also facilitates protection and rehabilitation of threatened species. The Act also promote involvement of institution of state government in the broad schemes of the implementation of the Biological Diversity Act through establishment of dedicated committees. Let's have a detailed discussion about the Act. So, Chapter 1, which is entitled Preliminary, and it deals with the short title of the Act, its extent, and the commencement and definitions of the important terms used in Act. The Act is applicable to all over in the India. Some of the important definitions provided in the Act are: the Act defined biological diversity as the variability among living organisms from all sources and the ecological complexes of which they are part, and includes diversity within species or between species and of ecosystems. Biological resources is defined as plants, animals, and microorganisms or part thereof, their genetic material and byproduct, excluding value added products with actual or potential use or value, but does not include human genetic material. Chapter 2 deals with regulation of access to biological diversity. So, section 3 of this chapter states that certain person not to undertake biodiversity related activities without the approval of National Biodiversity Authority. And these certain person include a person who is not a citizen of India, a citizen of India who is non-resident, a body, corporate, association or organization not incorporated or registered in India. No person shall, without the previous approval of the National Biodiversity Authority, transfer the result of any research relating to any biological resource occurring in or obtained from India or for monetary consideration or otherwise to any person who is not a citizen of India or citizen of India who is non-resident, except the publication of research and collaborative research project. No person shall apply for any intellectual property right by whatever name called in or outside India for any invention based on any research or information on a biological resource obtained from India without obtaining the previous approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. It also states that no person who is a citizen of India or a body, corporate, association or organization which is registered in India shall obtain any biological resource for commercial utilization or biosurvey and bioutilization for commercial utilization except after having prior intimation to the State Biodiversity Board. Chapter 3 deals with establishment of National Biodiversity Authority, its members, chairperson and power to central government to remove the members. So the section 8 empower central government to establish a body to be called the National Biodiversity Authority. It also provides guidelines for setting of committees of the National Biodiversity Authority. Chapter 4 talks about the functions of National Biodiversity Authority. It shall be the duty of the National Biodiversity Authority to regulate activities and issue guidelines for access to biological resources and for fair and equitable benefit sharing. The National Biodiversity Authority may advise central government on matters relating to the conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its components, and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of biological resources. It can also advise the state governments in the selection of areas of biodiversity importance to be notified as heritage sites and measures for the management of such heritage sites. The National Biodiversity Authority may, on behalf of the central government, take any measures necessary to oppose the grant of intellectual property right in any country outside India on any biological resource obtained from India or knowledge associated with such biological resources which is derived from India. Chapter 5. This chapter deals with approval by National Biodiversity Authority for undertaking certain activities. Any person referred to in subsection 2 of section 3 who intend to obtain any biological resource occurring in India or knowledge associated thereto for research or for commercial utilization or for biosurvey and bioutilization or transfer the result of any research relating to biological resources occurring in or obtained from India shall make application to the National Biodiversity Authority in the prescribed format. No person who has been granted approval shall transfer any biological resource or knowledge associated thereto which is the subject matter of the said approval except with the permission of the National Biodiversity Authority. It also states that National Biodiversity Authority shall, while granting approval, ensure equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the use of assessed biological resources, thereby products, innovations, and practices associated with their use and applications and knowledge with mutually agreed terms and conditions between the person applying for such approval, local bodies concerned, and the benefit claimers. Chapter 6, State Biodiversity Board. A state government may establish a board for the state to be known as the name of respective the State Biodiversity Board. It also mentioned that no state biodiversity board shall be constituted for a union territory, and in relation to a union territory, the National Biodiversity Authority shall exercise the power and perform the function of a state biodiversity board for that union territory. It also deals with the functions of the State Biodiversity Board under the Section 23. The State Biodiversity Board advised the state government, subject to any guideline issued by the central government, on matters relating to the conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its component, and equitable sharing of the benefit arising out of the utilization of biological resources. State Biodiversity Board also regulate by granting of approvals or otherwise request for commercial utilization of the biodiversity resources found in the state. State Biodiversity Board also performs such other functions as may be necessary to carry out the provision of this Act. Section 24 of this chapter deals with power of the State Biodiversity Board to restrict certain activities violating the objective of the Act. Any citizen of India or a body corporate, organization or association registered in India intending to undertake any activity for commercial purpose shall give prior intimation to the State Biodiversity Board. The Chapter 7 deals with finance, account and audit of National Biodiversity Authority. The central government may pay to the National Biodiversity Authority funds by way of grant or loans for being utilized for the purpose of this Act, and for the same a fund named National Biodiversity Fund shall be created. The National Biodiversity Authority prepare its annual reports, budgets, account and audit report. The annual report of the National Biodiversity Authority to be laid before the Parliament. The Chapter 8 deals with finance, account and audit of the State Biodiversity Authority. The state government may pay to the State Biodiversity Authority's funds by way of grant or loans for being utilized for the purpose of this Act, and for the same a fund named State Biodiversity Fund shall be created. The State Biodiversity Board prepare its annual report, budgets, account and audit report. The annual report of the State Biodiversity Board to be laid before the state legislature. The Chapter 9, Duties of the Central and the State Government. The central government shall develop national strategies, plans, program for the conservation and promotion and sustainable use of biological diversity, including measures for identification and monitoring of areas rich in biological resources, promotion of in situ and ex situ conservation of biological resources, incentive for research, training, and public education to increase awareness with respect to biodiversity conservation. It also states that where the central government has reason to believe that any area rich in biological diversity, biological resources, and their habitat is being threatened by overuse, abuse, or neglect, it shall issue directive to the concerned state government to take immediate ameliorative measures, offering such states government any technical and other assistance that is possible to be provided or needed. It also states that central government shall, as far as practicable, wherever it deems appropriate, integrate the conservation, promotion, and sustainable use of biological diversity into relevant sectoral or cross-sectoral plans, programs, and the policies. Section 37 of this chapter deals with declaration of biodiversity heritage sites and management and conservation of biodiversity heritage sites and compensation to people affected by declaration of biodiversity heritage sites. It states that state government may, from time to time in consultation with the local bodies, notify areas of biodiversity importance as biodiversity heritage site under this act. The state government, in consultation with the central government, may frame rules for the management and conservation of all these heritage sites. The state government also shall frame schemes for compensating or rehabilitating any person or section of people economically affected by such notification of biodiversity heritage sites. Under section 38, central government, in consultation with the concerned state government, may from time to time notify any species which is on the verge of extinction or likely to become extinct in the near future as a threatened species and prohibit or regulate collection thereof for any purpose and take appropriate step to rehabilitate and preserve those species. Through section 39, central government may, in consultation with the National Biodiversity Authority, designate institutions as repositories under this act for different categories of biological resources. Under section 40, central government may, in consultation with the National Biodiversity Authority, declare that the provision of this act shall not apply to any items including biological resources normally traded as commodities. Chapter 10, Biodiversity Management Communities. So section 1141 of this chapter deals with constitution of biodiversity management communities, and it states that every local body shall constitute a biodiversity management committee within its area for the purpose of promoting conservation, sustainable use and documentation of biological diversity, including preservation of habitats, conservation of land races, folk varieties and cultivars, domesticated stocks and breeds of animals and microorganisms, and chronicling of knowledge relating to biological diversity. It also states that National Biodiversity Authority and the state biodiversity boards shall consult the Biodiversity Management Committee while taking any decision relating to the use of biological resources and knowledge associated with such resources occurring within the territorial jurisdiction of the Biodiversity Management Committee. Biodiversity Management Committee may levy charges by way of collection fees from any person for assessing or collecting any biological resource for commercial purposes from areas falling within its territorial jurisdiction. Chapter 11, Local Biodiversity Fund. So under Section 42, the state government may pay to the local biodiversity fund by way of grant or loans for being utilized for the purpose of this act. Under Section 43, a fund shall be constituted to be called the local biodiversity fund at every area notified by the state government to receive the fund from state government, National Biodiversity Authority, state biodiversity boards, and fees received by the BMC. Section 44 of this chapter deals with management, custody, and purposes for utilization of local biodiversity fund. The fund shall be used for conservation and promotion of biodiversity in the areas falling within the jurisdiction of the concerned local body and for the benefit of the community. The person holding the custody of the local biodiversity fund shall prepare during each financial year its annual report. The accounts of the local biodiversity board shall be maintained and audited. Annual report and audited copy of the account together with auditors' reports to be submitted to the district magistrate having jurisdictions over the area of the local body. Chapter 12 is miscellaneous. So this chapter covers other varied matter related with the biodiversity conservation. For example, National Biodiversity Authority shall, in the discharge of its duties, functions, and duties under this Act, be found by such direction on question of policy as the central government may give in writing it to from time to time. National Biodiversity Authority shall, as far as practicable, be given opportunity to express its view before any direction is given, but decision of the central government shall be final. Similarly, State Biodiversity Board shall, in the discharge of its function and duties under this Act, be bound by such direction on questions of policy as the state government may give in writing from time to time. A state biodiversity shall, as far as practicable, be given an opportunity to express its views before any direction is given. The decision of the state government shall be final. It also discussed if a dispute arises between the National Biodiversity Authority and a state biodiversity board, the said authority or the board, as the case may prefer to appeal to the central government. If a dispute arises between the state biodiversity boards, the central government shall refer the same to the National Biodiversity Authority. The National Biodiversity Authority have same power as are vested in the civil courts under the Code of Civil Procedure. All members and officers and other employee of the National Biodiversity Boards or the State Biodiversity Boards shall be deemed, when acting or purporting to act in pursuance of any of the provision of this Act, to be public servant within the meaning of Section 21 of the Indian Penal Code. It also states that under the Section 52, any person aggrieved by any determination of benefit sharing or order of the National Biodiversity Authority or a state biodiversity board under this Act may file an appeal to the High Court within 30 days from the date of communication to him. Under Section 52A, any person aggrieved by any determination of benefit sharing or order of the National Biodiversity Authority or State Biodiversity Board under this Act may file an appeal to the National Green Tribunal. Under Section 53, every determination of benefit sharing or order made by the National Biodiversity Authority or a State Biodiversity Board under this Act or the order made by the High Court in any appeal against any determination or order of the National Biodiversity Authority or a state biodiversity board shall be deemed to be decree of the civil court and shall be executable in the same manner as the decree of the court. Under section 54, protection of action taken in good faith. So it state that no suit, prosecution or other legal proceedings shall be lie against the central government or the state government or any officer of the central government or state government or any member, officer or employee of the National Biodiversity Authority or the State Biodiversity Board for anything which is in good faith done or intended to be done under this act or the rules or regulation made thereafter. Section 55 of this chapter deals with the penalties, and it is stated that violation of the provision of section 3 or section 4 or section 6 shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 5 years or with fine which may extend to 10 lakh rupees, and where the damaged cause exceed 10 lakh rupees, such fine may commensurate with damage caused or with both. Violation of provision of section 7 or any order made under this section 2 of this section 24 shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years or with the fine which may extend to 5 lakh rupees or with both. It also states that under this section 56, if a person contravenes any direction given or order made by the central government, the state government, the National Biodiversity Authority, or the State Biodiversity Board for which no punishment has been separately provided under this Act, he or she shall be punished with a fine which may extend to 1 lakh rupees, and in case of second or subsequent offence, with fine which may extend to 2 lakh rupees, and in the case of continuous contravention with additional fine which may extend to 2 lakh rupees every day during which the default continues. It also states that where an offence or contravention under this Act has been committed by a company, every person who at the time of the offence or the contravention was committed was in charge of and was responsible to the company for the conduct of the business of the company, as well as the company shall be deemed to be guilty of the offence or the contravention if he or she is not able to prove that offence or contraventions was committed without his knowledge or that he had exercised all due diligence to prevent the commission of such offence or contraventions. Where an offence or contravention under this Act has been committed by a company and it is proved that the offence or contravention has been committed with the consent or the connivance of or is attributable to any neglect on the part of any director, manager, secretary, or other officers of the company, such directors, managers, secretary, or other officers shall also be deemed to be guilty of the offence. The Act also states that offenders under this Act shall be cognizable and non-bailable. The provision of this Act shall be in addition to and not in derogation of the provisions in any other law for the time being in force related to forest or the wildlife. The central government may give direction to any state government as to carrying into execution in the state of any of the provision of this Act or of any rules or regulation or other order made thereunder. It also states that no court shall take cognizance of any offence under this Act except on a complaint made by central government or any authorized officer authorized by the state and the central government, or any benefit claimer who has given notice of not less than 30 days in the prescribed manner. So, this act also provide power to central government to make rules for carrying out the purpose of this act. The state government can also make rules for carrying out the purpose of this act. National Biodiversity Authority shall, with the previous approval of the central government, make regulation for carrying out the purpose of this act. And it also states that under the section 65, if any difficulty arises in giving effect to the provision of this act, the central government may, by order not inconsistent with the provision of this act, remove the difficulty. Thank you. With the hope that you support the conservation of biodiversity.